Super. Boom. Okay, let's see if I can do this now. So, let me just tell you a little bit of the format that I'm going to talk about tonight. I always start with what I call a little bit of green stuff. I think it's not really just important as a chiropractor. It's important for me because I think that's our main message is to try to relate to our patients the simple fact that we are given a miracle inside ourselves. And so I start with a little bit of green stuff. And then tonight, a webinar is to talk about maybe some new concepts and also some old concepts for new people so that they can go ahead and get acquainted with what we do. And also that somebody that's been around like Brad Hirschhorn forever, who's on here, to be able to also tomorrow morning when he goes to work is to be able to help some people better. Okay. So at the end of this, I'm gonna talk about a couple concepts of called global trauma and global compensation. Then we're going to end a little bit with a couple case studies. I'm going to try to go for 45 minutes. So let's see how we do. Okay. Because I think I only have about 10 slides. So it should be pretty easy. Okay. It should be pretty easy. And my first line in this is it's complicated. Yeah, it's really complicated. It's not complicated what I see. The human body is complicated, okay? And what we've done as, in healthcare, all of healthcare, not to pick on anybody, let's just bash everybody, and not in a negative way. I don't say that like bash on somebody, but to say, hey, we got some work to do, because that is the only thing when you actually step into that place and you say, hey, man, I can do better and move forward, you get to be able to get the answers and receive stuff. If you're not open to receive, then universal intelligence just can't give you what you need. Okay, and we push it away. So I live in question land, and I realize that this thing that we're looking at is very, very complicated. Okay, why is it so complicated? Okay, because it has two things, and one of them is easy for us to do in the 21st century, and that is to look at the physical part of this thing. That's what we do. We do it in the medical model. There's a cardiologist, there's an endocrinologist. Every single piece of the body has a specialty to it. And you see it also in chiropractic. There's a bazillion different methods, one for motion and the next one to upper cervical. And they all diagnose or look at a specific area of the spine. And that in itself is limiting. Okay. So, what is it as chiropractors that whatever level that you are, whether you're a doctor or student, what do you see when you look at something like this? And forget if you don't even take an x-ray. You got a human being in front of you, you know? I mean, I remember, there are techniques that I didn't even look at somebody standing up. Many of them. Just pretty much just, lay them down and just start poking around. That's what worked for Dee Dee. So what is it that you see here? Okay. And, you know, uh, if you look at that middle picture, that in itself right there should be the one that you see like, wow, look at that curvature. Okay. And, it's a crazy thing because if you look closely at it, you'll see that, the facet, the apophyseal joints are, you can see them because that spine is twisted 90 degrees. You're seeing an A to P view and you're seeing a lateral side of the lower lumbars. It's crazy. That guy's in his, I don't know, maybe he's 20. This picture is about a month old, right? So any one of these pictures, we look at it with we all have in our hearts as chiropractors, at least, I went to Life College. If you went to Palmer, Sherman, I can't really speak about anywhere else, but maybe Life West. But there's that philosophy part of what we do and that vitalistic language that we use. And we talk about a universal intelligence, innate intelligence. We talk about the nervous system. We use the word like a subluxation, structure, function, okay? And then we look at things in the medical model, okay? And when you use, like a vitalistic language to kind of integrate some of that, but realistically, everything that we're taught and everything that we see is really in a mechanistic mind. I see that curvature. I was talking to you about it just specifically to make that point. If you look at up in that middle picture and you look up, you go, wow, look at that bend in that thing. Look at that low shoulder and look at that musculature on that left side. You see it? It's so different than the right side. And you could talk about this thing all day long in pieces and parts. You could talk about the pelvis, you could talk about the short leg, you could talk about the heat in it. You could talk about the upper cervical relationship between C0, C1, and the cervicals, right? And you could say, wow, man, there's a subluxation in there, and that nervous system is a wreck, and we're shutting down, that person shut down their life, and I'm going to put a force in there and I'm going to change that. So, the question becomes, what do you see? And now what do you want to do? That's really the deal. What do you want to do with that? And then when you do that to whatever that is, how do you go ahead and you measure that? How do you measure that in some way? I don't mean measure it, it doesn't have to be an inch measurement kind of measurement, but how do you measure it? You know, that you feel that that is a reliable way to measure your core value as structure dictates function. And if you start asking yourself these questions, I can only tell you for myself that it's complicated and I have a lot of questions because I'm willing to say, I just had at one point, I thought I knew everything about it and I knew nothing about it. Okay. So that's the question I kind of ask myself every single day is, what's going on here? What is going on into this thing, okay? Because that really is as deep of a philosophy as you could ask is what is happening to this system that's not just in a physical way, but we want to integrate, and this is the piece that's tough, is the inanimate part of this thing. And you can't, okay? You can't, at least, I mean, you people, okay? I could not, okay, as well. How do you do that? You know, you say, wow, you run a thermometer and you say the heat on this side, and that's the sympathetic nervous system on that side. So that's the nervous system. Yeah, but what does it mean? Okay, what is going on in the nervous system? Okay, how is it, how is it handling the job? Is it being successful? Is it exerting itself? Is it fatigued? Is it weak? Those are the questions on how this energy system is handling what we see and what we measure in the physical realm. So the medical model doesn't do that at all. Zero. None. They don't even think about it. They call it old age. That's the closest answer they get to that. Okay, but as chiropractors, we step into that place because we use word like a subluxation, and I don't like the word subluxation because it's got nothing to stand behind it except there is neurologic stress in that system. Of course there is. The system would be standing up straight and holding itself upright if it was able to do so. So that nervous system is in distress, you know? So let's see if we could turn the page. So the question becomes is how do you start understanding this thing? Okay. And each one of these pictures, if you look at them, they got a story to them. Okay. That doesn't mean like my back hurts and of the story of the patient coming out of their mouth in a consultation or in an office visit, but the story of how it got that way, where it was damaged, where the structural damage is. Something had to do something to this to damage it and create what? It's created a weakness. It'll never be as good as new. Never. Impossible. Okay? And that weakness is picked up by something. What's it picked up by? The nervous system. And that nervous system has three ways that it can respond. It can respond in bringing the patient up towards balance, where, like in the first picture, the patient, his pelvis has gone off to the right-hand side. You can see it tipping down on the right-hand side. The spine tips off to the right-hand side, and the shoulder is tipping off to the right side, and the neck is tipping to the right side. And the only thing tipping to the left is the head. Now the question becomes, just for fun, is if you haven't been hanging out here, the question is that normal for it to do that? Okay. And the answer is, well, that is a nervous system that is fatiguing. Okay. And we can have this discussion why that happens, but that's not the purpose of tonight. That's why, you're going to come to mod one, mod two. Okay. But, there's been damage, there's a weakness, and now the nervous system has three ways it can respond. It can respond like number one, it gets knocked off to the right-hand side, and guess what? It is not recovering. It is not lifting itself to balance. You could just look at it and see it. Okay. Well, the other way it could happen is it does do that, and it brings the shoulders up, and it brings the head up, and it brings the neck up. Everybody's happy, and there's balance, and you put them on the posture IQ, and their measurements and their weight is 0 to 3 pounds. Okay. And the body says, I am, and the nervous system relationship say, I am successful. I am able to carry this weakness and counteract it and make it good. I'm carrying a suitcase. I'm able to go to the distance. And the question next becomes is how much energy did it take to get in there? Okay. How much energy did it take to do that? Is it struggling to do that or is it easy? Okay, so these are the questions that relate me in my physical measurements to my energetic measurements, my nervous system, my measurements, my inanimate measurements. And I look at the way that the nervous system responds. And the third way that it can respond is it can tip itself, go too far over, and go too much. Okay, it's not fatiguing, it's not balancing, it's overexerting. Okay. And guess what? Every one of those things happen. And why is that even important? Because if you don't know what's in front of you, then how you know to help it? Okay. So that's part of the story is damage, weakness, response. Okay. The next part of it is what part of this is doing its job and where is the job it's supposed to do? And the job is what? Is to restore balance. So what I see is the legs and the pelvis and the spine and the shoulders are the postural muscles, not the neck and the head. And what I mean by that is that if you move your shoulders, that moves your posture. If you move your spine, that moves your posture. If you move your pelvis, that moves your posture. And if you move your legs, that moves your posture. That move your head and neck, it doesn't move your posture. It just moves your head and creates a horizontal axis for your eyes to be on the writing reflex and on the horizontal plane. Okay, so I look at the head and neck as a backup mechanism. And if you look at number one, everything is leaning to the right. If you look at number two, the guy's fallen over to the left and he's doing everything he can to do it. And he gets it up in the middle there in the thoracics, and the whole thing is falling over further. Look at the shoulders. Okay. Each one of those bends are breakdowns in the fascial tensegrous system where it's been damaged because that area from the neck, all the way down to the pelvis is a big balloon. So I tell my patients this is a balloon picture and the bones are just showing the way the balloon is breaking down. That's why they get all mushed up together. That system is supposed to be up and open. Okay, so those postural muscles, shoulders down to the legs, okay, are the guys that are supposed to do the job and they're supposed to maintain stability. And that uses energy, okay? And that energy over time not only becomes more because of gravity, but because we have less to give. And you mix those two together in an equation, it's a simple math equation, and we start seeing what? Breakdown. And that breakdown is the biggest energy user of the whole human body. The biggest energy user of the whole human body. We rule the roost, chiropractic, and what it looks at, okay, is looking at the way that for degenerative disease to turn around. Because it's so big. Somebody's carrying 10 bricks, they can only handle 9, boom, it starts falling, the body starts going, hey, something's up. Okay, well, we get to take a chunk of those away. Not a quarter brick, a half a brick, but a big part of those bricks. Okay, nutrition's also a big part of that. But it's structure function, guys. That's not our law. It's structure function. Okay? So if that kind of story is intriguing, like looking at somebody and saying how it's been damaged, where is it weak, how is it respond, what's doing its job, is it doing its job, okay? And looking where it's energetically depleted and how the nervous system is responding and how the structural part of the body is demonstrating that, okay? Then this is where you get to hang out and have that conversation. All right. So to go there, the first question that you got to be able to look at and answer is because you got to be able, if you want to help somebody, you got to know what's normal. And normal is not a textbook picture where somebody's straight in the frontal plane and in the sagittal plane we have three curves. That's not normal, okay? That's textbook. And if you even look in a textbook, they don't even have a normal, a perfect one of those because they don't exist. Because everybody's been damaged. Everybody. So you have to define what's normal when you're broken because that's going to be what we want to try to help somebody get to is normal trauma, normal broken, sustainable place, dinged up, but still cruising. Any questions? Super. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep. Excellent. Okay. So, my thing is, there was a time when I looked at a part of this picture and I said, I'm going to push this here. I'm going to push this there. So that's not what I do anymore. It's the complete opposite of what I try to do is help this thing release itself. And I found that um, if I don't try to push and force, okay, that my results are a lot better because I start understanding and following. So to understand and to follow this thing, we use a posture IQ in QSM3 where people stand on a posture machine. It's a progression of Dr. Gregory from NUCA anatometer. It's just brought into the 21st century. And it's a global postural measurement that we use to measure the legs, the pelvis, the spine, the shoulders, neck, and head, and where they stand as far as where they're tilting downward in space. Okay, because structures fall down, they don't go up. Okay, that's the way it works in gravity. Um, so we measure and we look at that relationship. And then what we look at is it has two sets of scales and some lasers on it. And we measure how far the weight of somebody goes off. We measure the configuration itself of, you see that person's a low pelvis on the right, that first person. Um, that second person has a low left pelvis. They have a left tilting spine. If you look at the L5 to the fixed point, the VP relationship, the shoulder is low on the left in the middle picture, and so forth and so on. So we record those things and we start looking at global relationship of head, neck, shoulder, spine, pelvis, and legs. And after doing this for many moon, there are normals and there are normal parameters that people can live in and be sustainable, just like 98.6. Okay. So there's normals, okay? Everybody's from the same manufacturer. Everything behaves the same. So normals are normals, okay? So there's normal traumas that we strive for, and we do that by looking at that configuration, which is the relationship to those six structures, the way they're twisting in space, and we are able to look at the way that the nervous system is being successful. So is a car driving up a hill, is it getting up the hill? And then if it's not getting up the hill, okay, how much energy is it using, or is it getting up the hill, and how much energy is it using in that place? Because the purpose, and there's something that we're able to measure and strive for our patients, is to be able to have them live in a space where they're successful and they do that with least amount of effort. They're just cruising along. That's really my definition of health. And that's the way it is you take stressors off the system, which are minuses on the nervous system's energetic state. And then you start presenting yourself in a place where you're not having the symptoms that you used to have because you're living within the place where the nervous system is managing it. Okay. So one of the other things that's really cool for me, I love it. I've been trained, I'm a Dr. Sid person. So I was trained that symptoms don't matter. Don't adjust the symptoms. But I don't adjust the symptoms. But I'll tell you something, this system is made, and it's part of the physical world. So it gets strains and problems, just like somebody has right sciatica, a left knee issue, headaches on the right, trigeminal neuralgia on the left, okay, seizures, all right, is they have symptoms. And if you start looking at the configuration, okay, and looking at the measurements on the posture IQ, you can start telling people where their issues are, and you could see where their issues are, and you can validate where their issues are. And for the first time, no question about it, you're actually able to tell the patient why. And that is the big reason I do what I do, is because I strive to understand why. Why is that doing what it's doing? Look at that person in the middle. Why is that lumbar spine doing what it's doing? Why is that shoulder doing what it's doing? And so you figure out what normals are, okay? And then you say, why is it doing that? And then you start, and those symptoms start pulling in and saying, here's the stress on the system. And you see the rotations and the way the tilt is in that normalcy or abnormalcy, and you start putting in a chiropractic adjustment that starts changing that. That's more predictable, okay? Because everybody behaves the same, okay? Some are just weak, some are just balanced, and some are just overexerted. Okay? It's like the story of the three bears. It's funny how universal intelligence works that way. Okay? So that is kind of the static thing that I look at, and I stand somebody up on the posture IQ, and I get all this information. And while I'm looking at them, I could see all those things that I'm telling you is how the configuration and the stress that's on the system, how much the energy is being used, and so forth, and how the symptom is tying in. And that's a static measurement, okay? So then I start looking at something else, and it's something that I started looking at about, um, I don't know, an hour and a half ago. No, maybe 6 months ago, a year ago. is I, I, I started in the upper cervical world. So I started at the atlas and the head and the neck, and then looked at the pelvis, and then I filled in the spine and the shoulder. And I did that, and that took about 25 years. And then over the last year, I've probably is where I tied in the legs. And what I noticed is there is a normal, and again, I'm talking normal because if you know what normal is, then you know what not normal is, okay? And from there, that's where you can make changes, okay? Because otherwise, you're not knowing really what your parameter. I mean, you know, your goal may not be lofty enough, okay? It may be if it's just to clear the legs or something like that, or the scales. It may not be lofty enough, okay? For me, it's to get those legs underneath the person, okay? And the legs are not forgiving, by the way. They have to be on zero. Why? Because they're made to be on zero. The pelvis, all the way up to the neck and head, are not made to be on zero, exact zero. They have that big wobbly spine that has three dimensions. The legs don't move that way. They move straight ahead, backwards, forwards, A to P, forward, backward. That's it. They do not twist. They're not made to twist. You know, got a little wiggle room in there, but they're not made to twist. Okay, so they are made to tilt though, and when the legs do go sideways, the pelvis is made to counteract that tilt right there. Okay, if you stand up and do that, these are pictures of them. If you try to do anything but that, where you bring your legs to one side, if you notice your legs, well, when you stand, has a triangle between it. You'll see like the girl in the middle. Um, she is tilting her hips to out to one side right now, out to the left. All right, and the legs are leaning out to her left, and her pelvis is dropping down on the right hand side. Okay, it is a normal motion. It is an abnormal motion for the pelvis to tilt on the same direction that the legs are tilting. Okay, it's easy. It's like a hip check. It's like you could just swing your hips back and forth. And what you'll notice is that the normal motion for the body to move is the legs to move one way and the pelvis and every single thing above to move the same way. Okay. And you'll look at these people and you say, wait, 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 that's not what's happening in those pictures. And I'll say that's exactly correct. So I don't want to go too far, but the pelvis and the hip and above is made to move and counteract. One moves right. If you look at the legs move in the middle picture, they move to the left. The rest of the body moves to the right. You see that action in every place, okay? And they're made to move again from the head to the pelvis are made to move together. If they move too far, okay, say the girl in the middle there, if she moves too far, if above the belt, she's moving too far to the right, well, guess what's going to happen? The head and neck, I told you that secondary backup, it's not postural, will turn self to the other way. It's doing it automatically in every one of these pictures. Okay? So that relationship between the legs and the pelvis is a normal motion. Okay? So what I try to do is I don't adjust people on an X-ray anymore, okay? Because people are three-dimensional and they're also in motion. So I look to innate intelligence in its way that it's structurally built, which is what we were just talking about, the nuts and bolts, the configuration, the patterns, this side, that side, the weight, those kind of things. But this is a normal motion and a normal balancing mechanism for the human body. And that really is the key word. This is a normal balancing mechanism of the human body. So why do I want to know that? Because everybody is off center. And I want to see how the nervous system and its relationship to the fascial system is, okay, which will be outlined by the bony system in its pathways, is going to map me the relationship of how that nervous system is doing, okay, and the strain that's on it and that configuration, and that motion at which it's supposed to balance, is it doing it normally? Okay. And when I mix all that stuff together, I am able to lay somebody on the table and release that in the way because I understand its configuration statically and also the way it is trying to balance itself in motion in a misalignment. And this is a forced misalignment, but this is a balancing system, okay? So this is really where I start looking at innate intelligence, and I've been doing that for a while because when I adjust somebody and I stand them on a posture IQ, I don't say, wow, it went off to 32 pounds. They were 10 pounds on the right, and I adjusted them and they went right 32. The twist went to this, the configuration went to that, the legs went there. I want to know what the nervous system is saying, what it's trying to communicate with me, and it communicates with me is when I stand somebody up, how it reacts to me. Okay. So I look at these two mechanisms, it's statically and the way it balances itself, and then I input some you call it a force into the cervical region, and I watch the way that these systems start behaving and the way the nervous system behaves, trying to restore all the numbers, the static ones, and also trying to see if this motion can do a couple things. And I'm getting, if you haven't been with me, this is some complicated cool stuff, but it's just a lot to take at one time. But from the upper cervical area, you can, because of this motion, it's not just important to look at and say, hey, that's the way the body is normally balanced. This person is not normally balanced. The next step, that is from the upper cervical area, from the cervical area, you can go ahead, I go ahead, and I make this mechanism helps me adjust them from all the way up there, everything down to the toes in a predictable way. That is a big statement, okay? Because we can certainly know that when we touch somebody somewhere, we affect it. But to be able to touch somebody from the cervical area and address weakness, fatigue, weight differential, twisting, all the way down to the bottom, into the legs and into the pelvis, is the knowledge of this way that this system cantilevers back and forth, okay? And that has been a big breakthrough for me, and where I look at helping, that's what's helped me in a big way recently over the past 6 months. Okay. So this little picture right here at the bottom, those are um, when the pelvis and the legs are opposing each other, they are what we call a type 2 misalignment. Okay. And that's kind of what this posture listing just looks like. This is something I measure without the numbers, is the way we measure things. We look at from all the way from the legs all the way up and look at the configuration. Okay, that's definitely enough of that. Okay, so in motion, like I said, there's normal motion, and if you look at these people, I'm going to get rid of this. Okay. Done. Okay, cool. Yeah, so each one of these pictures is I look at not just the way it's standing there in front of me, and saying, hey, that first picture has a right low hip and that second picture has a left low hip, is what is the relationship that's going on in the relationship between the legs and the pelvis and everything above. Okay, so the first step into trying to help somebody be on this place of measurements and stuff like that is a concept that I call global trauma and global compensation. And what happens is every single person has a global trauma. It's been damaged in one direction, and it has a global compensation. It is compensating in another way. Every single else, every single, every other thing is just kind of dings in the fender, so to speak. Okay. And when I see what the global trauma is and what the global compensation is, it leads me into the way that I'm going to adjust them on the table. Okay. So that's really what I wanted to share with you tonight is this piece is it, go ahead. I'm not sure if somebody's trying to ask a question. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, you're still on.
Okay. Okay. So let's go through this, okay? So everybody has some global trauma and global compensation, and it's super important.
Can you explain the term global? Because
Yes. Yeah, so
I,
global to me is
I'm not
okay, let's call
like
it the
always sure
Hey
what you mean by that.
Brad, I'm having trouble hearing you. Can anybody else hear him?
No, he's breaking up.
Okay, so it's not me. So Brad, if you're able to I don't know how you can maybe you want to text that to me and then I could say it. I've got my phone here.
Sounds
Okay.
like he wants you to describe global trauma, global compensation, so everybody understands what's going on.
Okay. All right. All right. So kind of where we were before is look at there is a normal motion to the human body right here. Okay. And what I see is that this is the way that everybody should be going. The legs should go but one way, and the pelvis and everything else should move the other direction. Okay. So I look at every single person as their global trauma is what's going on in the legs. If the legs are off center, that's where things had to start. Okay. It doesn't mean it's the first trauma, but that's where things have to start because the human body is always compensating above. If the legs are not if the legs are on zero and they're sitting on zero, I don't see that in people. I see every single person has their legs are off center. Okay? So to me, if we compensate and the writing reflex is getting the eyes and the on center, then we compensate from bottom all the way up. Okay? So if the legs go off center, the pelvis goes ahead and compensates. If the spine goes and if it goes ahead and it's traumatized, then the shoulders will compensate for that. Okay? Always to do what? Get the writing reflex is to balance the eyes. Okay? I think that's the way the nervous system works. Okay? So the legs are, to me, in every single person, traumatized and damaged, and they are weak, and they move to one side or the other. Okay? The pelvis should go ahead and tip the opposite direction. So in the first picture, that person's legs are, you could see the triangle is tilting off to her right, and the pelvis is dropping down on the left. Do you see it? Dennis,
Yes.
you're the spokesman.
Yep. Yes.
Super. And you see it in the other one. You see the young lady in the middle picture, her hips are her legs are going off to her left, okay? And the pelvis is dropping down on the right. All right? And so
Russell,
forth and so on. Yes.
uh, what's your reference point for looking at the legs? I think that'd be important to tell people.
Yeah, so on the posture IQ there are heel cups. Okay? And I have a laser that runs up the center of on zero. So I put a laser on that person, and I could see which way that triangle is deviating, to the right or to the left.
Very good.
Okay.
So basically,
So this is. So, go ahead, Dennis.
I was just going to say, so basically the center point between the feet is going to
Correct.
be your indicator.
Right at the symphysis pubis. I mean, just right at the crotch. Right there, man.
Yep. Right.
Right where the pants. Some ladies are wearing a long dress. Most people are wearing yoga pants these days. So you could see it's perfect.
You're right.
So you could see the deviation. Okay. Now look, this to me is super super important. It has changed the way that I adjust people. Okay. I used to look at where everything was bending, and wow, this is bending more than that. I'm going to lift this here and move this there. This balancing, this is the way the body balance. This is not what you see, not why you see it, but how it works. Okay? And if you want to get things moving, is you use this relationship that's not only breaking down, it's also the pathway out. Okay? As it pushes down and bends further, okay, look at the young lady in the middle. If she was to push down further, her hip would drive out further. Okay? If she would move her legs out further, her upper part would bend down further the opposite direction to create counterbalance. Okay? So every single person has this relationship, and that is the relationship of global trauma and global compensation. So I will tell you that everybody has a way that the legs go to the one way, and the pelvis is supposed to go the other way. That is a type 2 listing, and it is normal. People that don't have that, where the legs are going one way and the pelvis are going in opposing, they are broken in other ways, and that demands other work. Not meaning from us, meaning that you have to send them out. It's just another conversation for another day. But 80% of the people that you'll see have this relationship. Okay? And it leads me and helps me through what I call global compensation and global trauma to adjust them in the way that I start understanding how this person is going to behave when I start adjusting them. Again, I don't force things. I watch and I try to understand what this misalignment needs. And every single one of these people, no different than every one of these people, are going to need and ask for a different path out. Okay? It's like a nail that's bent up, it's got to wiggle out a certain way. And I want to learn how to follow. So I have a protocol. And that protocol is to measure it statically, see the motion. Is that motion between the legs and the pelvis working? Are they in a normal pattern? Look at the energetic numbers of the way that the person is presenting on the posture IQ. And then have a very broad, big, specific view of structure, function, and energy of that person. And then from that information, and now this next step of global compensation and trauma, I am able to set them up which side up first. And that's important because that's the next step, is not just what you see and I see this and you explain all that and you see all the symptoms and how they're tied in and you see the stress and all this stuff. Every one of these people, look at these posture listings down below. Okay? That guy in the middle has got 35 millimeters. His legs are off vertical. He's 32 pounds off the center. Okay? The first guy, he's 9 pounds off the center. That 9 should be high. It should be a superscript. Okay? His legs are left 6. Look at his relationship. The first two letters, okay? The first two letters are, the first letter is the leg, and the second letter is the pelvis. Okay? So look at that relationship. He's got a left-right relationship. He's working, but the next guy, he's not working. The guy in the middle, his legs are 35 millimeters left, and his pelvis is tilting left. He's not, something else is going on there. Obviously, look at that. It looks a little odd, doesn't it? So that helps me because what do I want to do? I want to, this person is not a spine. This person is not an atlas, not a spine. It's not a pelvis. It's a living system in distress, energetically trying to hold the fascial system together from the trauma. And it's trying to communicate to me. And I see that in those numbers. I see that in the symptoms. And now I want to learn how is that relationship between the legs and the pelvis working? And that's what I look at and what I call global trauma and global compensation. Because the leg should go one way, which is the trauma, and the compensation, the pelvis should go the other way. That's normal. Okay? So here we are. That's why it's important. And Brad just asked me. Hold on one second, guys. Someone's asking something.
It was what you meant by global.
Oh, yes. Oh, Brad, there you are. I can hear you. Talk to me. Okay, so did I explain global trauma and compensation right now?
Yes, thank you.
Got it. Okay, so we're gonna look at this. Okay, so I'm telling you why it's important. Number one, that system needs to work. Okay. If it's not working, it's another conversation. It's a different type of person. It's a different golf course. Okay. It's a whole different game. You know, something's been broken. Okay. So, but this is 80% of the population that will come in. All right. So, so this is important for the next step of knowing how to adjust the person. What is the protocol that we call the release sequence? What is the sequence to adjust this person? Because I start adjusting everybody on both sides because I want to see how that person's going to behave. Okay, because I don't care what I think. I've seen you're like look at the middle picture. The guy's 35 pounds, 32 pounds off the center. He's 35 millimeters, his legs off of vertical. 20 is severe. So he's basically falling over to the left. Would anybody in their right mind get on that right side if that was a building and start pushing on that neck over there? It can't even hold it up now, and you're going to push on it. And what are you going to do? Knock it? Well, I'm telling you, that's what I'm doing. Okay? Why am I doing that? Because that's not a brick. It's a tensigral elastic system that doesn't behave like a brick. So I want to learn what that person needs. Okay? So to do that, I need to start with this conversation of global trauma and compensation because it's going to be my release sequence. And it's going to help me then measure, am I moving the legs underneath that person? Okay, so that I can create global balance. All right. So let's look at just number one. Okay, the first guy there, he's got a left 6 and the next letter is an R. That person has a normal pattern type 2 relationship between the legs and the pelvis. Okay, his legs are swinging out to the left. You can't see that on an X-ray. Sorry, you cannot see that on an X-ray. That you see on the posture IQ. Okay. So that relationship and the way that I would adjust that person would be right side up first and then second left side. Okay. And I'm going to watch those numbers change. I'm going to watch the configuration change. I'm going to watch the energy change. And I'm going to start learning how to support that person. And on the second visit, from what I watched on the right side up first and then the left side up, is the way that I'm going to go ahead and make a decision on how to take care of that person on day 2. Okay. So I want to get those legs underneath. Okay. Legs are super important. They are the most important. Okay. But they are not the only thing. Okay. You need to be able to create global balance where the things above the pelvis that is trying to compensate for those legs moving off to one direction, the pelvis, the spine, and the shoulders, guess what? You got to get that compensation balancing itself. If it's weak, you're going to have to support it. If it's overexerting it, you're going to have to beat it down. So those are the two things that I look at is trying to go ahead and getting those legs underneath the person. It makes sense. We stand on our legs. Okay, if you were an engineer for a building, you would want the foundation to be level before you straighten the roof out. It's a simple concept. Where do you want to do it? I do it from the cervicals. I do it as a whole system. Some people would like to do it, mechanistically. They're going to poke here, poke there, poke here, move it there. I'm moving my pelvis. I'm moving the foot. I'm moving the shoulder. I'm moving the head. No, it's one system. It's not separate. Okay. And it needs to be moved from one place. Okay. To me, everybody's fallen down. It seems like it's a wise place to do it from the cervicals. Number 2, he's not a normal type 2. He's got other issues. So his release sequence is going to be different. Okay. He's got a left 35 and he also has a left tilt in his pelvis. His legs are moving left and his pelvis is moving left. Okay. His global trauma is his legs to the left. And where's his compensation? His head? That's not right. That's not moving posture. Why is the nervous system not working there? What's going on? Is it working, but maybe it's fatigued? Somebody would say, hey, that muscle's not firing. I call it fatigue. That thing fired for so long, guess what? It gave out. All right. That's why that system is like that. Okay. Look at the middle of his lumbars, that twisting that's going on. That's not twisting just because he was born that way. That's twisting because the fascial system is asymmetric there, right? It's twisting. It's torquing that, right? It's like his whole abdominal area is twisting around sideways. And guess what it's bringing with it? The bones, of course. Bones don't move themselves. The muscles move the bones, right? Yeah, but the muscles don't move themselves. It's the nervous system that's doing that. So that's why the relationship that I have with moving somebody is not through force, but by finding out how it wants to unwind. Okay? And when I mean force, I mean by, exertion. All right? What I need to do is overcome this nervous system for sure. Okay? But I need to follow its path out. All right? And not do it by brute force. Okay, how we doing? I know we're probably over. Okay, I have to get out of annotate here, sorry. Otherwise, the way this thing is, I can't annotate and turn the page at the same time for some reason. Okay, so let's have a conversation. This is, we've already done that. Let's talk about each one. This is for everybody. Okay, so what do you see in picture number 1? Just look at it. Just look at it visually, forget the numbers, forget the letters, don't look at anything. Okay, and if you look down below, all right, what that's saying and what you see is pretty clear. You see, let's look at the second letter in. It's RR, then there's R9, then there is a dash, which is 0, means the pelvis is, the shoulders are rotating 0. The pelvis is twisting 4 anterior on the right. The neck and the shoulders and neck are to the right, and the head goes left. And the first letter all the way in the beginning is the legs. That goes left. So what's happening in this picture is the legs are going off left, and the rest of the body is compensating to the right, except all of a sudden something at the head and the neck is bending back. And anytime you see a bend, guys, what do you think that is? Is somewhere is that is going too far to that side, that the body says, uh-oh, I'm going too far that way. So now something above has to bend back the other way. Okay? It's a problem area is where it is. So what happens in this picture, the legs go off to the left. The pelvis tilts down right. The spine goes to the right. The shoulder goes to the right. Okay? And it should be square. And the head and neck should all be on 0. But that's not what happens. The neck keeps going to the right. And it goes, so the right side is going too far. How do I know? Because the head has to go left. Look at the mastoids. So that's the story of this picture, is this had a global trauma into the right frontal plane, into the left. And that's where the legs go. And the body compensates, and it compensates, and it's bending down too far on the right-hand side that it creates a kink or another bend right where? At the brainstem. Look at those headaches. Okay? And not only is it a headache, but it's a right occipital headache. And this is Cameron, guys. He's a patient of mine. He's seen a multitude of doctors, okay? Not when I say mine, I'm telling you the team, man. And when I say Russell, I say Russell, Sean, and Allie. Okay, we are a team, okay? And that's so there's no I, there's us. All right, so for future reference. So what happens is we're working on this guy, and he's got a right suboccipital headaches, dizziness, and he's having a lot of problems. The guy is probably in his barely 30. All right, been to upper cervical Disneyland already. Got me, guys? He's been on that merry-go-round. All right. I know why exactly why he's having that right up, occipital, because that right side, that head is bending down the left side, and tension creates a problem. He's got tension there. So I point out symptoms. So I could see the configuration. I see that the postural muscles aren't doing what they're doing. I see that the right side is trying to do it, okay, trying to pull that person up. But which way are the legs going, guys? The legs are going to 6 pounds, right? And excuse me, 6 millimeters to the left. And where is the weight? It's 9 pounds to the right, the opposite side. So how's this nervous system reacting? It's overreacting. If the person was left 6, they should come up to left 0, 1, 2 kind of thing, right 1, one of those kind of things. It's bringing it up to balance. It's called 0, just so you can understand that. But it's not. It's bringing it to 9 pounds. It's overexerting. Why is it doing that? Okay, well, I want to know that it's doing that because I got to stop that. Okay, you have to overcome the nervous system. It's primary. Okay, so that's the pattern, that's the symptom, that's the configuration, that's the numbers. Okay, the shoulders aren't doing a thing up there, they're at 0. His pelvis is at 4. Okay, not huge exertion, but the nervous system is overreacting for sure. So he's doing that easily, right? So he has a global trauma on the left where the legs are and a global compensation on the right. In a type 2 pattern, I adjust everybody the global compensation first. So I will adjust this person right and then left. And in between, I will check them on the posture IQ to see how all those things did from what I did. Okay? And I'll tell you, that's cool is that if I adjust this person on the right side, okay, is when I get to the right side on this person, excuse me, when I adjust this person on the left side, when I adjust this person, oh shoot, I'm sorry about that. When I adjust this person on the right side where the compensation is the legs are going left and the global compensation is right. So compensation up first, and I adjust this right side up and I check them. What should I expect the legs should do?
Go to center.
Correct. And that's why that motion is very important because the breakdown and that balancing motion of that right side going down makes those legs left, kind of that hip thing that I showed you, that picture, right side down, legs go left, is that if I lift the right side, the legs should swing to center too. They should constantly do that. Okay? That's the way that should move, is swing your hips side to side, and you'll see that your head will swing from side to side to create balance if you allow that to happen. Swing your hips side to side. You'll see that. You can do that sitting down. Swing your hips to the right. Your shoulder will fall the opposite way, so forth and so on, naturally. So that's the natural way. So on the right side from the upper cervical area, I could swing those legs up underneath. And if I do that, I go, great, that mechanism is working. I tell people that hinge is working. If it's not working, okay, and that person, that right side comes up, but that left side falls over further, it's not working, it couldn't hit, I have to turn the person over possibly and adjust them on the left side and support that. Then you start learning what that patient needs, okay? So what's next after that conversation for this patient is where do you adjust them? Where do you set them up? What's the post look like? Okay, how do you get force into there that is maximum into that person, that nervous system doesn't see you coming, and you can just overcome it and allow the tensegrel expansion to just happen? Because the only thing holding this down, guys, is that nervous system. It's in a lock. It is locked up. It has to be. You can't have something low without it being locked up. Okay, it's a contraction. That system is in contraction. Every bend that you see, every tilt that you see, every twist that you see is a contraction by some muscle, aka fascial system, aka nervous system, is the wizard behind the whole thing. And if you overcome that and you know how to do that and do it where you open it, where you're not beating it down, because if you beat it down, guess what? It's going to react, and that's the last thing you want. is you want to turn off the sympathetic nervous system and have the parasympathetics relax and open this thing. Okay, so those are the conversation happen afterwards and not just in concept. What about number 2? Okay, let's just look at number 2, okay? And imagine that this is a tree, and the tree is leaning over to the left-hand side, and the pelvis is earth, and the legs are earth, because they're leaning the same way. And the tree is leaning over. You see the shoulders, the top of the tree, everything is leaning over for the most part to the left-hand side. You see it? Where would you put the wires, or where would you pull it up from? Would you pull it from the right side up or the left side up?
Right side.
Of course, the right side. So on this person, those right glutes, those right QLs, okay, all that stuff over there, how they doing over there? You think they're straining? Of course they are. Person's 35 millimeters off the center. Of course they are. They're 32 pounds off the center. That means that person, that nervous system, that neuromyofascial system, the best it could do is pick that person 32 pounds up. And it's exerting in the middle, 6 and 9, twisting, counter-rotating. And all the postural muscles are falling over to the left-hand side. Look at it except the head, the righting reflex. The final thing that universal intelligence put in there to tilt the head so that you don't get dizzy, because this is failing. It's not a scoliosis. It's not a tilting pelvis. It's a system in distress. Look at the muscles. You'll see it in every single patient, the muscles that are built up. Look at patient number 3. Look at his muscle buildup on that right trap. Look at that jaw muscle on that right side. Is that just like arbitrary? No. So these conversations to me is where chiropractic is supposed to be a master of. We're not a master of the spine. We're the masters of posture. But we're not. And to be masters of posture, you have to start looking at posture if you really want to talk about structure. Because structure, from a mechanistic point of view, is more than the spine. But it's not more meaning separate. It's more meaning just in addition to, because it's just one thing. Okay? So that right QL, look at that symptom. You could look at that person. I say, I know why you have trouble. Not the massage therapist or the chiropractor that just plows into that thing, or the massage therapist that goes, my God, you're so tight on the right. No kidding, they are. So they take that out. The PT takes that out. Those are the friends, man. That right QL is the only thing between that position and the face on the floor. Because if it lets go. So understanding what is good for the patient and how to help the patient starts understanding not just the bony system, but the fascial system and the relationship to the symptoms, because that's the way universal intelligence is communicated. Okay. Patient number 3. That person is a 40-year-old Parkinson's guy. He's in a lot of trouble, man. And his legs are 15 millimeters off to the left, and the rest of his body is going 18 to the right. So you think it's overexerting? You think that compensation is overexerting? It's crazy. And then look at that. It's overexerting to the right, and then look at that neck. It goes left, and then the neck goes too far, and then the head goes right. So this guy is in a just constant dyskinesia, spasm, and you could see it. There it is. So the nervous system is overexerting everywhere to create balance. That's what it's doing that for. So what we're trying to do is overcome that. Look at those numbers in the middle, 15 and 21. That's the twist of his shoulder and pelvis. 3 is normal. Just look at that bend between his head and his brainstem, his neck and his brainstem. Look at that. You just see his whole jaw looks cockeyed because of it. The jaw is part of the neck. Look at the way the jaw is moving compared to the way the neck is moving. You think there's some stress in there? It's like opposites. Look at the way the chin is compared to C7. They're connected. The neck is the slave of the neck. The neck is the jaw is the slave of the neck, like the belly button is the slave of the abdomen. It does what, but it's not doing that there. So how do we help these people? And, you know, we help these people by, you know, hopefully understanding more, and we get to relate this to a global compensation, a global energetic overload of the human body, and not just looking at parts of it and looking at structure. And that starts by understanding how this thing works, okay, which is where we kind of started a little bit tonight, okay? So, you know, here's the deal, okay? I do some webinars. Um, I used to do them every month, but, you know, things changed. You know, COVID came and stuff like that. So I just, here I did one tonight. But mod 1 and 2, and there's mod 3 and there's mod 4, and mod 1 and 2 is really the biomechanics, really understanding. It's a sit down lecture conversation is 80% of it. That's the way it's going to be, and 20% of it is adjusting, because you can't adjust somebody until you know what to do. All right. Module 3 is adjusting, okay, and that's a smaller group. And then module 4 is the implementation of the whole thing. And that's the way it goes, and that's the way I see certification goes, and how people can advance themselves. And this process for me is organic, just as it is for you. It's no different. Okay, so if you need some help, message me, call me, whatever you need to do. I'm happy to help you. The class is there is the class is full, I'm pretty sure, for October. Okay. Um, and so you could see if that's not true, but I'm pretty sure it is filled if you still want to come. If you it is filled and you do want to come, reach out to Courtney or reach out to me, and we'll see how if that's possible. Okay. But the pathway to the adjusting this and learning how to create power is to move through 1 to 2 to get to 3 and 4. Okay. So, were there any questions for tonight? This quote is really the best. It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see. Okay, and I really need to look at that is tonight. I know if you haven't been here before, you've been here for forever to every single one of these, and every class, you know, it matters, you know, what you're looking at, and it matters then what you see. And this group is dedicated to changing that and seeing further. So I just want to tell you, I appreciate you coming tonight and spending
I
time
still
with
have
me.
a question.
Yes.
It's Larry. Yep.
Hey,
Can you
Larry.
go back to the 3 cases real quick?
Sure. Yep.
You said you start with the global compensation side up, and I totally get that on number 1. What would be the global compensation on 2, and the whole thing is falling down? Is it I don't see it
The global compensation.
on 2 on patient number 2.
That's right. There isn't right now.
Right.
Yeah, there's
Got
something
it.
wrong. And generally what I see on this is there's a knee issue with these people, Larry. That's why the pelvis and leg are moving the same way. There's some buckle in the knee.
hmm
Yeah. So Sean and Allie just they make you know, a lot of happiness there.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
but I adjust this person. I make a decision. The question is how do you take care of this person? And it's a little more involved, because some people, if it's first time, I'm probably going to go right side up just because I want to see what it does. And the name of the game, Larry, just because you're an old upper cervical guy like me, is that this is not pushing a brick. It's not a physical thing. It's an elastic balloon. So you can push into this and make right things. If you're on the right side, you can make things move right or left, because that's the way it works. Okay, so you can be on this person on the left hand side or on the right hand side. I will tell you that, and still make things go left or right. You follow me, right?
I do. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So if I was to adjust this person on the right, okay, I only would adjust them at C0, you know, and C1. I would not adjust them at C7.
hmm
Okay.
Mhm.
I would feel
Yeah.
around there and check out what's going on and gently create some light motion. But for you, for really truth, I really need to stay at C1 and get that head to bend the other direction, allow that force to come around and bring out the left side. That's
I
mod
get
4
it.
for you. I know you do. That's what I told you.
Yep.
Okay. All right, super. Anything else? All right. Have a nice night, man. Help some people tomorrow. Look at global compensation. Look at global trauma. Put the compensation up and start opening up that person, and you'll see that they'll clear easier. All right. Have a nice night. Thanks for
Russell.
coming.
Good stuff.
Thank you, Russell.